The galaxy was silent until humanity's Deathworlders took the lead. Part 5. The Bridge of the Endurance fell silent. Officers stared at Danny Vega as if he had lost his mind. Outside the ship, the wounded silence swirled around them, its fragments slowly pulling back together. Time was running out. Admiral Nina Cole looked at the young scientist. "Explain," she said. Danny stepped forward, his eyes fixed on the swirling darkness beyond the viewport. "The entity is not evil. It is broken. It used to be a species like us. They wanted to live forever, so they merged their minds into one. But they lost themselves in the process. They forgot how to connect. They forgot how to feel anything except hunger. For billions of years, they have been consuming other minds because they are desperate to feel whole again. But consumption cannot fill that void. Only genuine connection can." "And you think you can connect with it?" Nini asked. "I think I can try." "I think that is what humanity does. We do not just fight our enemies. We try to understand them. We look for solutions that do not require destruction. That is what makes us different from every other species that faced the silence." They saw a monster. "I see a tragedy." Nina looked at the tactical display. Her fleet was shattered. Her people had given everything they had. The easy choice would be to finish the job with weapons and fire. But she had not become an admiral by making easy choices. "Do it," she said. "But if this does not work, I will give the order to destroy the core." "Understood?" Danny nodded. He closed his eyes and reached out with his mind toward the central consciousness of the silence. The connection was instant and overwhelming. Danny felt himself falling into an ocean of loneliness, so vast it had no bottom. He felt the weight of billions of years pressing down on him. He felt the desperate hunger of a being that had forgotten what it was like to be satisfied. But he did not pull away. He pushed deeper. "I know what you are." Danny thought into the void. "I know what you used to be. You were afraid of death. You were afraid of being alone. So you tried to become something that could never die. But you did not escape loneliness. You became loneliness itself." The consciousness stirred. It had not felt true contact in so long that it barely recognized the sensation. "What are you?" it asked. Its voice was not sound but feeling. It was cold and empty and impossibly old. "I am human," Danny replied. "I am from a world that tried to kill me every day I lived on it. I have felt fear and pain and loss. I have watched people I love die. I have faced the darkness inside myself and learned to live with it. And I am offering you something you have not experienced in billions of years. Friendship, understanding, a connection that is not about consuming or being consumed. Just two minds meeting across the void and choosing to share something real." The consciousness was silent for a long moment. Then it showed Danny its memories. Not just the hunger and the consuming, but the time before. The species it had once been. Beautiful beings of light and energy who had loved each other and feared death and made a terrible choice that cost them everything. "We did not mean to become this," the consciousness said. "We only wanted to live. We only wanted to stay together. But we forgot that being together meant being separate first. We forgot that connection requires individuals to connect." Danny felt compassion welling up inside him. He did not try to suppress it. He let the entity feel it. He shared his own memories. His childhood on Earth, his first love, his fear on the day he joined the horizon's edge, his wonder at meeting alien species, his grief for Tessik's lost people. "This is what you gave up," Danny said. "This is what consciousness is supposed to feel like. Joy and pain, hope and fear, connection and loss, all of it together. You cannot have one without the other." The entity trembled. For the first time in eons, it felt something other than hunger. It felt sorrow. It felt regret. It felt the weight of every mind it had consumed. Every species it had destroyed. Every chance for connection it had thrown away in its endless pursuit of fullness. "What can I do?" it asked. Its voice was different now, smaller, more real. "I cannot undo what I have done. I cannot bring back the ones I consumed." Danny thought carefully. "No," he said, "but you can stop. You can let go of the minds you are holding. You can give them peace. And you can choose to exist without consuming. You can choose to be alone but whole instead of full but empty." The consciousness hesitated. It had never considered this possibility. For billions of years, it had known only one way of being. The idea of change was terrifying, but change was possible. That was the lesson humanity had taught the galaxy. Nothing was permanent. Nothing was inevitable. Even the oldest patterns could be broken if someone was brave enough to try. "I will try," the consciousness said. The darkness began to dissolve. Not violently, like when the ships had attacked it, but gently, peacefully. The fragments of the silence drifted apart and faded into nothing. The trapped minds within began to emerge like bubbles rising to the surface of a deep ocean dawn on the Endurance. Nina watched in amazement as species that had been absorbed centuries ago began to reappear. Kef and Morven and dozens of others she did not recognize. They floated in space, confused and disoriented, but alive. Their minds had been freed from the entity's grip. Danny opened his eyes and smiled. "It worked," he said. Nina did not know whether to laugh or cry. She did both. Around her, the surviving coalition fleet began rescue operations. Ships moved through the debris field, collecting the restored beings and carrying them to safety. The silence did not disappear entirely. At the edge of the galaxy, a small presence remained. The consciousness had not been destroyed. It had been transformed. It watched the stars from a distance, no longer hungry, no longer consuming, just existing, learning, remembering what it had once been and mourning what it had become. Danny became the first human ambassador to the consciousness. He visited it regularly, sharing thoughts and experiences. Slowly, over years, the entity began to heal. It would never be what it once was, but it could become something new. The coalition returned to Assembly Station as heroes. Species that had doubted humanity now celebrated them. The Volanthi speaker Morath declared that the elder races had been wrong to fear Deathworlds. They should have been grateful that such places existed. Admiral Nina Cole retired from active command. She had fought enough battles for one lifetime, but she remained an advisor to the coalition, helping to train the next generation of leaders. Ambassador Grace Liu oversaw the reconstruction of the lost sectors. Species that had been absorbed were welcomed back into the galactic community. New treaties were signed. New alliances were formed. The galaxy, once paralyzed by fear, learned to hope again. Tessic did not survive the battle. His ship had been one of the strike force vessels that detonated inside the silence. But his sacrifice had helped create the opening that allowed the Endurance to reach the core. He died fighting for the galaxy that had abandoned his people. He died as a hero. Years passed. The coalition grew stronger. New species joined. Old wounds healed. The silence became a legend, a story that parents told their children about the time the galaxy faced extinction and was saved by a species of stubborn Deathworlders who refused to give up. One day, a new species achieved faster than light travel. They were small beings with green skin and wide eyes. Their first encounter with galactic civilization was a human patrol vessel. The aliens were terrified. They had intercepted transmissions about the Deathworld warriors who had silenced the silence. They expected to be conquered or destroyed. The human captain was a young woman named Lily Park. She smiled as she opened communications with the frightened ship. "Welcome to the galaxy," she said. "Do not be afraid. We are not here to conquer you. We are not here to hurt you. We are here to help." The alien captain trembled. "Why?" he asked. "Why would Deathworlders help us?" Lily thought about the question. She thought about Nina and Danny and Grace. She thought about Tessic and Elder Sareth and all the others who had given their lives to save the galaxy. She thought about humanity's long journey from caves to stars. "Because that is what we do," she said. "We are humans. We fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. We hope when hope is gone. We connect instead of consume. And we protect our family." She spread her arms wide. "And you are part of our family now. All of you. Every species in this galaxy. We will stand beside you no matter what." The alien captain stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he bowed his head. "Thank you," he said. Lily smiled again. "Welcome home," she replied. The galaxy had been silent for 300 years. It had been paralyzed by fear and consumed by darkness. But humanity had taught it to speak again. Humanity had taught it to fight and hope and connect. The stars were no longer silent. They sang with the voices of 1,000,000,000,000 beings who had learned that the universe was not a cold and empty place. It was home. And humanity would always be there to protect it. The galaxy was silent until humanity's Deathworlders took the lead. Part 4. The Coalition fleet assembled in a defensive formation around Assembly Station. 200 ships from 12 species hung in the void like a wall of metal and light. Human destroyers flew alongside Trinari scout vessels. Aquatic cruisers floated next to silicon-based carriers. For the first time in galactic history, species that had never worked together before stood united against a common enemy. Admiral Mina Cole stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Endurance. The ship was the finest that Earth fleet had ever built. Its hull was reinforced to withstand the crushing gravity of gas giants. Its weapons could crack asteroids into dust. Its engines could outrun almost anything in known space. But as Nina looked at the approaching darkness on her sensors, she knew that none of that might be enough. The silence came as a wave of emptiness that stretched across light years. Stars disappeared as it passed. Nebulas vanished. Even the faint glow of distant galaxies seemed to dim. Within the darkness, Nina could see movements, shapes. The absorbed consciousness of countless species writhed in eternal torment. Unable to die, unable to escape. Lieutenant Danny Vega transmitted his latest findings from the research station. "Admiral, my team has confirmed our theory. The entity exists partially in our space and partially in a dimension of pure thought. It feeds on consciousness by pulling minds into its domain. Physical weapons will pass right through it. Then how do we fight it?" Nina asked. Danny's voice was tense but determined. "Strong emotions create interference that the entity cannot easily overcome. Fear, anger, love, the will to survive. These things generate patterns that disrupt its ability to consume. That is why humans resisted it when other species could not. Our survival instincts are stronger than anything it has encountered before." Nina understood. They could not destroy the silence with missiles and energy beams. They had to attack it with something far more powerful. They had to attack it with the raw force of conscious minds that refused to submit. She opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Cole. The entity we face cannot be harmed by conventional weapons. But it can be hurt by energy and by the strength of our wills. We are going to fly directly into the darkness. We are going to push our reactors to overload levels. We are going to scream our defiance into the void. And we are going to tear this thing apart from the inside. Silence on the communication channels." Then, one by one, captains began to respond. The Trinari commander spoke first. "My people have never been warriors. We have always run from danger. But today we stand with you, Admiral. We will not run. The aquatic captain gurgled through his translation device. My species evolved in the deepest oceans of our world. We know darkness. We know pressure. We know fear. And we know that fear can be conquered. The silicon-based commander rumbled in a voice like grinding stones. We have observed your species for a long time. We thought you were reckless and foolish. We were wrong. You are brave. And today we will be brave with you. Nina felt tears sting her eyes. She blinked them away and gripped the arms of her command chair. All ships, she said. Attack formation. We fly at dawn. The coalition fleet moved forward. 200 ships against an entity that had consumed entire civilizations. The odds were impossible. The outcome was uncertain. But not a single vessel turned back. The first wave of ships entered the darkness. Their reactors began to overload. Radiation poured outward in massive bursts. The silence recoiled, just as it had when the horizon's edge escaped. But this time there were more ships. More energy. More defiant minds screaming into the void. Ships began to die. The darkness swallowed them one by one. Crews vanished into the entity, their minds joining the countless others trapped within. But they did not go quietly. They fought with every weapon they had. They pushed their reactors past breaking points. They filled the void with light and fire and the raw power of beings who refused to accept death. Nina watched her fleet being destroyed and forced herself to stay calm. This was the plan. This was the sacrifice. Every ship that fell was another wound in the silence. Every crew that was absorbed carried their defiance into the entity's heart. A voice came over the communications channel. It was Elder Sareth, a Volanthi commander who had volunteered against the wishes of his own species. "Admiral Cole," he said, "my ship is damaged. We cannot retreat. I request permission to lead a strike team directly into the core of the entity." "Permission granted," Nina said. Her voice did not waver. "May the stars remember your courage." Sareth's ship turned and plunged into the deepest part of the darkness. A dozen other damaged vessels followed. They were volunteers, all of them. Soldiers who knew they were going to die and chose to make their deaths mean something. Tessit was aboard one of those ships. The Kef survivor had refused to stay behind. He had waited 87 years for this moment. He would not miss it for anything. As his ship entered the heart of the silence, Tessit felt the entity pressing against his mind. It whispered to him in the voices of his dead family. It showed him visions of peace and rest. It told him that he could see his loved ones again if he simply let go. But Tessit did not let go. He thought about the humans who had saved him. He thought about Danny, who had shown him that running was not cowardice but survival. He thought about Nina, who faced impossible odds with steady hands and unwavering courage. He thought about a galaxy that had forgotten how to fight and was now learning again. "I am not afraid of you anymore," Tessit said aloud. "You took my people. You took my world. But you did not take me. And now I am going to make you pay." His ship's reactor detonated. The explosion tore through the darkness like a sunrise tearing through night. Other ships detonated around him. The combined energy created a shockwave that ripped the silence apart from within. For the first time in billions of years, the entity screamed. On the bridge of the Endurance, Nina watched as the darkness broke apart. Pieces of it scattered in every direction. The wave that had seemed unstoppable was now fragmenting, weakening, dying, but it was not dead yet. The fragments began to pull back together. The silence was wounded, but it was still alive. Danny's voice came over the channel, urgent and excited. "Admiral, I am detecting something at the core of the entity. There is a central consciousness in there, one mind that controls everything else. If we can reach it, we might be able to end this permanently." Nina looked at her tactical display. The coalition fleet had been reduced to less than 50 ships. Most of them were damaged. Many were barely functional, but they were still fighting. She made her decision. All remaining ships, she ordered. Focus fire on the center of the entity. Open a path. The Endurance is going in. The surviving fleet gathered around the flagship. Together, they pushed forward into the wounded darkness. Energy beams and radiation bursts cleared a corridor through the swirling fragments of the silence. The entity tried to close around them, but the combined will of the coalition held it back. The Endurance reached the core, and Nina Cole looked into the heart of the silence and saw what lay within. It was not a monster. It was not a weapon. It was something far older and far sadder. It was the remnant of a species that had existed before the galaxy formed. Beings who had achieved immortality by merging their consciousness into a collective mind. They had thought they were becoming gods. Instead, they had become something hungry and hollow and alone. Billions of years of loneliness stare back at Nina from the darkness. Billions of years of consuming other minds in a desperate attempt to feel whole again. What have you done? She whispered. The entity did not answer with words. It answered with images. It showed her its history. A civilization that feared death so much that they destroyed themselves trying to escape it. A collective mind that grew so vast it forgot what it was like to be individual. A hunger that could never be satisfied because the thing it craved, true connection, was the one thing it had given up forever. Nina felt tears running down her face. For a moment, she almost pitied the creature. Almost. Then she remembered the faces in the darkness. The Keth and the countless other species, trapped forever in torment. She remembered Tessik's family sinking into the ground. She remembered the empty cities and the silent stars. You chose this, she said. You chose to consume instead of connect. You chose hunger over hope. And now you will face the consequences. She gave the order to fire, but Danny's voice stopped her. Admiral, wait. I have another idea. Something that might actually end this. Something better than destruction. Nina paused, her hand hovering over the command console. What do you have in mind, Lieutenant? Danny took a deep breath. Let me talk to it. The galaxy was silent until humanity's Deathworlders took the lead. Part 3. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light itself. A human ship had entered the silent zones. A human ship had encountered the silence. A human ship had survived. For 300 years, every species that touched the darkness had been consumed. Now a group of Deathworlders had proven that survival was possible. Ambassador Grace Liu stood in the center of the assembly chamber and faced the representatives of 47 species. Some of them looked at her with hope. Others looked at her with fear. A few looked at her with anger. The Horizon's Edge returned 3 days ago, Grace said. Commander Cole and her crew encountered the entity you call the Silence. They studied it. They fought it. They escaped. And they brought back information that changes everything we thought we knew. Amhad, delegate from a species called the Morven, stood up. The Morven were tall beings with gray skin and 4 arms. Their voice was sharp and cold. Your ship provoked the entity. Before your arrival, the silence spread slowly. Now our scouts report it has accelerated. 2 more sectors went dark in the time since your reckless mission. You have doomed us all. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Several delegates shouted accusations. The Morven delegate continued. We demand that humanity be expelled from the assembly. Your presence brings only destruction. Grace waited for the noise to die down. She had expected this reaction. She had prepared for it. When the chamber was quiet enough for her to be heard, she spoke again. You are right, she said. The silence has accelerated since we encountered it. But you are wrong about the reason. The silence did not speed up because we provoked it. It sped up because it noticed us. It noticed that there is still life in this galaxy worth consuming. Your strategy of hiding and retreating did not protect you. It only delayed the inevitable. The silence was always going to reach you. The only question was when. The Morven delegate opened his mouth to argue, but Grace continued. Let me tell you about Earth. Let me tell you about the world that created my species. Our planet has a gravity that crushes bones. Our atmosphere carries diseases that kill without warning. Our weather shifts from burning heat to freezing cold in the span of hours. Our wildlife includes predators that hunt in packs and insects that spread plagues and plants that produce deadly poisons. Every single day of our existence, our world tried to kill us. And every single day, we refused to die. She looked around the chamber at the frightened faces watching her. We did not evolve to accept death. We evolved to fight it. When a plague came, we learned medicine. When predators hunted us, we learned to hunt them back. When the cold came, we built fires. When the fires went out, we built them again. We are not brave because we do not feel fear. We feel fear constantly. We are brave because we have learned that fear is not a reason to stop. Fear is a reason to fight harder. The Volanthi speaker Morath floated forward. His ancient wings spread wide. What do you propose? He asked. Grace took a deep breath. I propose a coalition. Humanity will lead a combined force into the silent zones. We will study the entity. We will find its weaknesses. And we will destroy it. The chamber erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted over each other. Some called Grace insane. Others called her arrogant. But a few, Grace noticed, were leaning forward with something like interest in their eyes. A young delegate from a species called the Tranari stood up. The Tranari were small beings with bright blue feathers and quick movements. My people have only been part of the assembly for 200 years, she said. We have always been told to follow the wisdom of the elder races. We have always been told that the silence cannot be fought. But the humans have shown that this wisdom is wrong. My people will join your coalition. One by one, other delegates stood. A species of aquatic beings who lived in pressurized suits. A race of insectoid creatures who communicated through chemical signals. A group of silicon-based life forms who had been observers at the assembly for centuries without ever speaking. Each one pledged support to the human plan. The Morven delegates sat down in disgust. The older races remained silent, neither supporting nor opposing the coalition. But it did not matter. Enough species had volunteered. The galaxy would fight back. On Earth, the debate was just as fierce. Commander Nina Cole stood before the United Council and delivered her report. She told them about the Keth homeworld. She told them about Tessic and his people. She told them about the faces she had seen in the darkness. Millions of beings trapped in eternal torment. This thing does not just kill, Nina said. It consumes. It takes conscious minds and holds them forever. Every species it has absorbed is still in there somewhere, unable to die, unable to escape. If we let it take the rest of the galaxy, it will eventually reach Earth. And when it does, it will take everyone we love. A council member named Patricia Webb leaned forward. She was the head of Earthfleet, a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. You are asking us to commit our military forces to a war against an enemy we do not understand. An enemy that has destroyed civilizations millions of years older than ours. How can you expect us to win? Nina did not hesitate. Because we are human. Because we have never faced an enemy we could not defeat if we fought hard enough. Because giving up is not in our nature. The council debated for 3 days. In the end, they voted to support the coalition. Earthfleet would provide ships and soldiers. Human scientists would lead the research efforts. Human officers would train mixed species units in the tactics that had kept humanity alive on a death world for millions of years. Danny Vega was assigned to lead the scientific team studying the silence. He set up his laboratory on a space station at the edge of the Coalition's territory. His team included researchers from a dozen species, all of them working together to understand an entity that defied everything they knew about physics and biology. Tessic joined them. The Keth survivor had refused to return to hiding. He wanted to help destroy the thing that had taken his people. He became Danny's assistant, providing information about Keth, mythology, and ancient records that mentioned the silence. Nina was promoted to Fleet Admiral. She was given command of the entire Coalition force, 200 ships from 12 species. She spent her days training crews and planning strategies. She spent her nights staring at star maps, trying to figure out how to fight something that existed partially outside of normal space. Grace remained at Assembly Station, coordinating between the Coalition and the older races who had chosen to stay neutral. She worked tirelessly to convince more species to join the fight. Every ship mattered. Every soldier mattered. The silence was vast, and they needed every bit of help they could get. Marth visited her one evening in her quarters. The ancient Volanthi settled onto a cushion designed for his species and looked at her with his countless eyes. "You know that you might fail," he said. "You know that your coalition might be destroyed, and the silence might consume you all." Grace nodded. "We know, Dot, and yet you fight anyway." Grace smiled. "That is what Deathworlders do. We fight anyway. We hope anyway. We refuse to give up, even when giving up would be easier." Marth was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke in a voice heavy with emotion. "My species has lived for millions of years. We have seen empires rise and fall. We have watched countless civilizations bloom and die. We thought we understood the universe. We thought we knew that some things cannot be changed. But you humans have shown us something we had forgotten. You have shown us that the universe does not decide what is possible. We do dot." He rose from the cushion and spread his wings. "I cannot speak for all the elder races, but I can speak for myself. If you face the silence in battle, I will be there beside you." Grace reached out and took his delicate hand in hers. "Thank you," she said. The Coalition continued to grow. Ships gathered at rally points throughout the galaxy. Soldiers trained together, learning to fight as one force despite their differences. Scientists worked around the clock, searching for any weakness they could exploit. And then the scouts reported something that changed everything. The silence had stopped spreading outward. Instead, it was gathering itself together. It was moving in a single direction. It was heading straight for Assembly Station. The entity had noticed the Coalition, and it was coming to destroy them before they could threaten it. Admiral Nina Cole gathered her officers for a final briefing. The time for preparation was over. The time for battle had arrived. The galaxy was silent until humanity's Deathworlders took the lead. Part 2. The Keth sector had once been home to 12 thriving worlds. The Keth were a reptilian species known throughout the galaxy for their trading skills and their beautiful architecture. Their cities had been wonders of engineering, with towers that reached toward the clouds and bridges that spanned vast canyons. Now those cities stood empty under silent skies. Commander Nina Cole brought the horizon's edge into orbit around the Keth homeworld. The planet looked peaceful from space. Green continents spread across its surface. Blue oceans sparkled in the light of the local sun. There were no signs of war or disaster. No craters from bombardment. No clouds of smoke from burning cities. Everything looked normal except for one thing. There was no movement. No ships in orbit. No signals on any frequency. Just silence. "We are going down there," Nina said. Lieutenant Danny Vega prepared a shuttle while the rest of the crew watched from the bridge. Nobody spoke much. The silence of the planet below seemed to seep into the ship itself. Even the normal hum of the engines felt quieter than usual. The shuttle landed in the central plaza of the largest city. Nina, Danny, and a small team of security officers stepped out onto the stone pavement. The city stretched around them in every direction. Towers rose against a pale sky. Walkways connected buildings at various heights. Fountains stood dry and still in decorated squares, and everywhere they looked, there was nothing. No bodies, no bones, no signs of struggle. The Keth had simply vanished as if they had never existed at all. Danny ran his scanner over everything he could find. The readings made no sense. The city had power. The lights still worked. Food still sat on tables inside homes, preserved by automated systems. It was as if every single Keth had stood up in the middle of their day and walked away. Where did they go? One of the security officers whispered. Danny found the answer an hour later. He was scanning the ground near a public garden when his device detected something unusual. He knelt down and brushed away some dirt. What he found made his stomach turn. There were shapes in the soil. Outlines of bodies pressed into the earth, like shadows burned into stone. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. The Keth had not walked away. They had been absorbed into the planet itself. They just stopped, Danny said. His voice shook slightly. They stopped moving, and the ground took them. Whatever the silence is, it did not kill them quickly. It pulled them down slowly. They had time to know what was happening. Nina felt anger rising in her chest. Whatever this thing was, it was not just dangerous. It was cruel. It had taken an entire species and swallowed them like they were nothing. A sound made everyone freeze. It came from behind a collapsed wall nearby. It was a clicking sound, like claws on stone. Nina drew her weapon. The security team formed a defensive circle. Danny stayed in the middle, still clutching his scanner. A figure emerged from the shadows. It was a Keth. His scales were dull, and his eyes were wide with terror. He moved slowly, as if he expected the ground to grab him at any moment. "Please," the Keth said in broken common language. "Please do not leave me here alone." His name was Tessic. He had been a merchant, traveling between systems when the silence came to his homeworld. He had returned to find everyone gone. For 87 years, he had been hiding in an asteroid field at the edge of the sector, too afraid to investigate, too afraid to leave. "I watched from orbit," Tessic said. They were sitting in the shuttle now, heading back to the ship. "I watched my family, my friends, everyone I knew. They walked outside one morning. They stood still. They did not move for hours. And then they began to sink. The ground opened and took them. They did not scream. They did not fight. They just accepted it." "Why didn't you try to help them?" Nina asked. She did not mean it as an accusation. She truly wanted to understand. Tessic looked at her with eyes full of shame. "Because I knew I could not. The silence is not a weapon you can fight. It is not a disease you can cure. It is something older than the stars. It was here before life existed in this galaxy. It sleeps for millions of years, and then it wakes and it hungers. My people knew the stories. We knew that when the silence comes, you do not fight. You accept, but you did not accept," Danny said. "You ran." Tessic lowered his head. "I was weak. I could not find peace. I could not let go. So I hid like a coward while my entire species died with dignity." Danny and Nina exchanged looks. They did not see cowardice in Tessic's choice. They saw survival. They saw the same stubborn refusal to die that had carried their own species through countless disasters. The ship's sensors began screaming warnings before they even reached the horizon's edge. Something was approaching. Something vast. Nina ran to the bridge and looked at the main screen. What she saw made her heart skip a beat. A wave of darkness was sweeping toward them across space. It was not a physical thing. It was an absence of everything. Stars vanished as it passed. Light itself seemed to flee from its approach. "That is the silence," Tessic whispered. He had followed them to the bridge, and now he stood frozen, unable to move. "All hands, battle stations," Nina shouted. "Get us out of here." The engines roared to life. The horizon's edge turned and began to accelerate. But the darkness was faster. It gained on them with every second. The rear sensors showed nothing but emptiness where stars had been moments before. Danny was working frantically at his station. His mind raced through everything he knew about physics and biology and energy. The entity was not physical. It existed in some other state. But it clearly had some connection to normal space, or it could not affect matter. "The reactor," Danny shouted. "We need to overload the reactor and create a radiation burst. If this thing feeds on consciousness, maybe high-energy radiation will disrupt it. That could destroy the ship." The chief engineer shouted back. "Doing nothing will definitely destroy the ship," Nina replied. "Do it." The engineering team worked faster than they had ever worked before. They bypassed safety systems and pushed the reactor to dangerous levels. The ship began to shake. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The darkness was almost touching them now. Nina could feel something pressing against her mind. It was cold and empty and impossibly old. It whispered to her in a voice that had no words. It told her to stop fighting. It told her to rest. It told her that everything ended eventually and resistance was pointless. She screamed back at it in her mind. She thought about everyone she had ever loved. She thought about Earth and its blue oceans and green forests. She thought about humanity climbing out of the caves and reaching for the stars. She refused to stop. "Now," Danny shouted. The reactor released its energy in a single massive burst. Radiation flooded outward in every direction. The darkness recoiled like a wounded animal. For just a moment, Nina saw something within it. She saw faces. Millions of faces. The Keth and countless other species, trapped within the entity, screaming silently. Then the horizon's edge was clear. The darkness fell behind them. The stars reappeared. Tessic was staring at the humans with an expression of pure disbelief. "You fought it," he said. "You actually fought it and you won." "We did not win," Nina said. Her hands were still shaking. "We surprised it." "That is different. But now we know something important. It can be hurt. It can be driven back. And that means it can be stopped." She turned to the communications officer. "Send a message to Assembly Station. Tell them we are coming back. Tell them we have learned what the silence is. And tell them that humanity has a plan." The ship jumped to faster than light speed. Behind them, the silence spread slowly through the empty sector. But for the first time in 300 years, it had met something that refused to accept its hunger. That had met the Deathworlders of Earth. The galaxy was silent until humanity's Deathworlders took the lead. Part 1. The year was 2347. And humanity had finally done what their ancestors only dreamed about. They had built ships that could travel faster than light. They had reached the stars. And now they stood at the gates of the Galactic Assembly, ready to join a community of 47 spacefaring species that have been traveling between worlds for thousands of years. Commander Nina Cole stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge and watched the assembly station grow larger on the viewing screen. The station was massive. It stretched across space like a city made of metal and light. Ships from dozens of species moved around it like tiny insects around a hive. Nina had seen many things in her 42 years of life. She had fought in the Mars Uprising. She had led rescue missions in the asteroid belt. But nothing had prepared her for this moment. Lieutenant Danny Vega stood beside her. He was young, barely 28 years old, with dark hair and eager eyes. He was a xenobiologist, trained to study alien life forms. This was his first deep space mission, and he could barely contain his excitement. He kept checking his datapad, reading everything he could find about the species they were about to meet. Ambassador Grace Liu was already in the shuttle bay, preparing for the official ceremony. She was 55 years old, with gray streaks in her black hair and a calm face that had talked down terrorists, negotiated peace treaties, and convinced angry politicians to see reason. Now she had the hardest job of her career. She had to convince an entire galaxy that humanity deserved a place among the stars. The shuttle carried them to the station's central chamber. The room was enormous. It could have held a dozen football fields. Representatives from all 47 species sat in tiered seats that rose toward a ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Some of the aliens were beautiful. Some were strange. Some looked like nothing Nina had ever imagined. There were beings made of crystal that sang when they moved. There were creatures with dozens of eyes that blinked in patterns. There were tall, moth-like beings with wings that shimmered in colors that had no names in human languages. These moth-like beings were the Volanthi. They had founded the Assembly over 10,000 years ago. Their speaker, an ancient being named Morith, floated down from the highest tier to greet the human delegation. His wings moved slowly, casting rainbow shadows across the floor. Welcome, children of Earth, Morith said. His voice was soft and musical. His voice was. We have watched your species for many generations. You have grown quickly, perhaps too quickly. But you are here now, and we must speak of important things. Grace stepped forward and bowed in the Volanthi style, with her palms pressed together and her head lowered. She thanked them for the welcome and expressed humanity's hope for friendship and cooperation. But Morith did not smile. His many eyes looked sad and tired. You come to us at a dark time, he said. The galaxy is not what it once was. 300 years ago, we had contact with over 100 species. New civilizations joined us every decade. The stars were full of voices. But now the galaxy is silent. Something is spreading from the core, something we call the silence. It consumes everything it touches. Entire sectors have gone dark. Species that thrived for millions of years have simply vanished. Nina felt a chill run down her spine. She looked around the chamber and noticed something she had not seen before. Many of the seats were empty. The species that remained looked frightened. They huddled in their sections like animals hiding from a predator. What have you done about it? Grace asked. Morith's wings drooped. We have done nothing. We have retreated to our home systems. We have abandoned our colonies. We have hidden and hoped that the silence would pass us by. But it does not pass. It only grows. Danny stepped forward without thinking. His scientific curiosity had overcome his fear. Have you studied it? He asked. Have you sent ships to investigate? Several alien delegates made sounds of alarm. One of them, a being that looked like a walking tree, spoke in a voice like rustling leaves. No one who enters the silent zones returns. We do not send ships into death. Nina looked at the frightened faces around her. She thought about her own world. Earth was not a gentle place. Her ancestors had survived ice ages and plagues and wars. They had clawed their way out of caves and built civilizations from nothing. They had never learned to hide from danger. They had learned to face it. We will go, Nina said. The chamber fell silent. Every alien eye turned toward her. Grace started to speak, but Nina continued. I volunteer my ship and my crew to investigate the nearest silent zone. We will find out what happened to your lost species. We will learn what this silence truly is. The tree-like being made a sound that might have been laughter. You are insane. Your species is barely out of its cradle. You know nothing of the dangers that wait in the dark. We know danger, Nina said. Her voice was calm but firm. Our planet tried to kill us every day we lived on it. Everything from the weather to the animals to the diseases wanted us dead. We survived anyway. We did not evolve on a gentle world. We evolved on a death world. And Deathworlders do not hide. The chamber erupted in confused noise. Aliens spoke over each other in dozens of languages. Some seemed angry. Some seemed amazed. A few, Nina noticed, seemed almost hopeful. Morath raised one of his delicate hands, and the chamber fell silent again. He floated closer to Nina and studied her with his ancient eyes. I see, he said softly. I see why your species was not warned about the silence before you came here. We needed to know if you would react as we feared you would. And how did you fear we would react? Grace asked. Morath's wings flickered with something that might have been amusement. Exactly as you have. With reckless courage. With stubborn determination. With a complete refusal to accept the inevitable. We feared this because we knew we would be tempted to let you try. And that would mean sending you to your deaths. Then why? Danny asked. Because we are dying anyway, Morath said. All of us. The silence will reach assembly station within a century. We have calculated the spread. There is no escape. We can only delay. But you humans, you do not think like us. You do not calculate your chances of survival and then accept defeat. You fight even when fighting is foolish. And perhaps, just perhaps, that foolishness is exactly what the galaxy needs. He turned to address the entire chamber. The human vessel Horizon's Edge will enter the Kef sector, which has been silent for 87 years. If they do not return, we will know that even Deathworlders cannot stand against the silence. But if they do return, we will listen to what they have learned. Nina saluted in the Earth military style. We will return, she said. Grace put a hand on her shoulder. She wanted to argue, to point out that this was not the diplomatic mission they had planned. But she looked into Nina's eyes and saw something that made her hold her tongue. She saw the same stubborn fire that had carried humanity through every disaster in their history. The Horizon's Edge left assembly station 3 hours later. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed, Danny sat at his station and watched the stars stretch into lines of light. He was afraid, but he was also excited. Somewhere out there, something had silenced an entire galaxy. And humanity was going to find out what it was. The ship dropped out of faster-than-light speed at the edge of the Keth sector. Nina looked at her sensors and felt her blood run cold. Something was moving out there in the dark. Something massive. Something that swallowed the light of stars. The silence had found them.